Babe, wake up. New Bionicle prototypes just dropped. You better believe I'm going to be talking about all of these in detail in today's video. There's some really sick designs here. So let's see what was going on in the ideation and prototype stages when LEGO was designing the 2008 Fantoka wave of sets. And maybe checking out some of this stuff will give you some inspiration for your own creations. This first one here is easily my favorite. What a cool design! A hunched over look, a giant mask, and this large turbine on the back. Now, we don't know what this set was supposed to be, it's just described as a prototype Toa. But I'm inclined to think that this would have been early designs for Pahatu Fantoka. I mean, Pahatu in his official set, he had helicopter blades for weapons, and he had that orange color scheme. And, of course, this has an orange color scheme. And this huge turbine on the back, it's vaguely helicopter or plane related, so it feels tangentially related to this set. I'm just guessing, we don't really know. This could have been a brand new Titan character that never actually made it into any kind of final set. But let's go back to that mask. All the silver with that sick orange line down the eye. Man, that's so awesome. And then they've got a giant mustache. That's the coolest thing ever, we need more masks with mustaches. This dude kind of reminds me of Whitebeard from One Piece with a mustache that's that big, you know? Honestly, I wish we got an official mask that looked like this. If anyone ever makes a 3D printed one, I will buy it tomorrow. And actually, it's cool because this mask is just made up of Nuparu Enaika's shield. The LEGO designers cut up this piece and fused it together with some other pieces to form this design. We can see a few more of these bits on the back of the mask, and also on some leg armor. I mean, look, that was the ideation process for new Bionicles. They'd cut up pieces and stitch them together with other parts, so they could come up with the rough look of what they're thinking for brand new pieces. It's fun to see the LEGO designers playing around with different ways of showcasing the flying aspects of these characters. Throughout the Fantoka wave, we saw this on all of the Toa. Pahatu had spinning blades for hands. Those helped him fly. Liwa had jet engines on his arms. It was a trope that was across all the different characters. So the idea of a giant turbine strapped onto someone's back? That's a fun concept. And looking at this, I don't think this would be that difficult to recreate with existing pieces. It's also cool to see the fact that LEGO was saying, hey, why don't we combine the blaster and some of these wind turbines into one big old thing? I like that. Oh yeah, and this piston-heavy look that this dude has got going on, especially the pistons that flow down into the feet. Mate, this is such an awesome design. I love this. Over to a different design that we don't know much about, but I imagine this could have been, again, character designs for early Pahatu. Look at this derpy mask with the eyes really spread apart. It's a fun look, but I don't know if it's all that, fitting for a heroic Toa. I do enjoy this weapon over here though. See how it's taking the Vaki weapon pieces and cutting off the edges and turning them into a little kind of pincer style weapon. Very fun. Although, looking at the model, I imagine that this was probably scrapped because it doesn't really have any kind of flying focus to it. Nothing about it screams that they're flying in the skies like the other Fantoka sets. And that was the main idea of this wave, right? If anything, I think this dude looks more like a construction worker or a miner who's working down in the mines. Maybe this didn't really fit the creative direction that they were going for, so they changed it up. So we didn't really know what those specific characters were before, but we do know who this one is. This was an early version of Kopaka Fantoka, and you can certainly see the similarities. These doubled up wings, they're very fancy. I love how they look. The finalized wings on the end product, they were nice. They were modest, they were simple, they were reminiscent of a fighter jet. But this crazy 4-wing design, it makes it look like he's some kind of experimental fighter jet. Or it's got a bit more of a kind of science fiction vibe to it. It's awesome. Now, have a look at these feet. Jets and wings everywhere, and then a big old kind of clump of silver at the front. A little bit strange. I wonder if the designers felt that there was maybe a little bit too much going on here. Things were a little bit too messy and a little all over the place, so they wanted to strip things back a little bit, go for more of a minimal fighter jet inspired design, one that's sleek and one that's slim. I suppose that would make sense given that the end toy looks pretty similar to what I was describing. Still, it's fun to see them go really wild on this version and add heaps of stuff. Like these turbines on the torso. These are the same ones that come in a lot of city airplane sets, like the one that you're seeing here. Yeah, if the final design had a few system pieces in it, that could have been cool. I would have been down for that. We move over now to another Kopaka prototype, and this one certainly has less going on. It looks like they maybe took on those notes and tried to tone down the design a little bit, make it a bit more sleek. I quite like this torso armor. To me, it actually looks like some of the real-world kind of armor plating, or whatever you call it, on the back of a fighter jet. It's reminiscent of that, especially with weapons that are wings. It's a good fit. Although, this mask is crazy. The bottom section, it uses pieces from Dekar's mask, and the top area appears to be using a Rakshi head. And then they're kind of, fused together to create a funky-looking mask, but it's a mask with no scope eye. And every version of Kopaka has always had a scope eye. Weird to see him without one. Now, I do believe that early on in the design process for making these Fantoka and Mystica sets, the designers were not told that they were making the original Toa. They ended up finding that out later on, and that was to prevent spoilers from getting out. So, maybe the person that was making this, they were just kind of making their own character, and that's why the mask doesn't have a scope. But yeah, it's hard to say. Maybe they were just experimenting. But then after this, we transition onto a model that appears to be very late in the design process, because this looks a lot closer to the end result. But comparing the two, we can see some minor differences. We have a totally different blaster design, which actually looks pretty awesome. We also have a different torso piece and a few color changes on some of the limbs. I'm sure that these were changed because of, part and color availability, or just to refine the design a little bit more, make the colors more consistent and a lot more clean. Still, it's fascinating to see some of the different stages that went on when designing Kopaka. It really feels like they tried everything until they got him just right. We also have a cheeky peek at an early version of Solek, the Matoran counterpart for Kopaka in this wave. I love the idea of giving him wings, especially because one of the gimmicks of this wave was that each of the Matoran sets could link up with their Toa, and they could fly together. So in this case, I guess Solek would be giving Kopaka larger wings to help him fly faster. It kind of reminds me of the G2 Uniter sets, where the creature would link up with the Toa, and it would enhance the character in some fashion. I wonder if that was the goal here, or if they were just like, Solek would look cool with wings, why don't I do that? Could have been as simple as that, who knows. But look at this mask. It almost looks like the face of a villain, not a kind Avmatoran of light. Some of the pieces that they've cut up to make this mask, it appears that there's the top section of this engine piece. It's been chopped in half. At least I'm pretty sure it's that part. It's interesting though, it looks like a bit of a gas mask of some kind. But check out the top of the head. It almost looks like they're using this piece right here, shoulder armor that came on some of the Star Wars Ultra Build sets. But this piece didn't come out until 2015. The final version of these prototype sets, they came out in 2008. So was this piece around for far longer than we realized? But LEGO just never made it into an official piece until many years later? That's wild! It looks like the piece even has the same kind of indent in the center there. You can just see it on the orange piece that I'm showing you at the bottom of the screen. Huh. Does LEGO do that? Do they really make pieces and then not release them for many years later? Wow. Or was this just stewing around through many different prototypes and eventually they were like, oh yeah, we can put this in a set. Maybe there was a designer out there who tried many years to put this in an official set and it kept getting turned down until the Star Wars Ultra Build sets came out. Who knows? This is crazy. But you know what else is crazy? Some of the other Matoran designs that we can see here. Most of them originally seemed to have masks that were simply recolors of older masks. Like Tunma's mask, for example. It was Axon's mask, but in green. Dude, I would have loved to have this in green. But look, whether this was going to be an actual thing or these were just placeholder masks, we don't know. But look, like we can see with the final versions of these sets, we ended up getting brand new masks instead of recolored masks. Like Deflak's mask, for example. Getting that in white would have been cool, but the final mask also looks pretty cool. And hey, it pains me to say it because I love recolored masks, but getting brand new masks instead, that probably is a better thing. So I'm glad that they went down this route instead of recoloring masks. We also have this image here that shows us some of the name ideation for some of these Matoran. We can see a few of the final names on the lists here, but there's also a few other interesting names. Yeah, people, they message me all the time and they're like, hey Ben, what should I call my mock? Maybe you could take one of these names. They could be perfect for your next creation. I mean, Spectra, that's a cool name. Ruster, interesting. And yeah, I can see why Dix was not used as a final name for any of the official Matoran sets. Even though it looks pretty cool when you put an X at the end there, when you say it out loud, well, you know. And yet you might have spotted some of the Shadow Matoran prototypes in this image right here. I'm going to show these ones off in a future video, and in that video, I'll show you all of the prototypes for the Matoran in 2008. So stay tuned for that, we've got some good designs coming your way soon. This one here's a little teaser for that. Still a few more to go, here's an early look at Liwa Fantoka. It's fairly easy to see some of the similarities to the final set. But again, they seem to tone down some of the armor and the weapons. More minimal designs, which I think was a good thing. Although, look at this orange visor on the mask. Kinda reminds me of some of the visors that we got on the Invasion from Below Heroes. I wonder if this sort of indirectly inspired that many years later. I get the sense that the reason they put this on the mask was because it was taking some notes from real-world fighter pilot helmets. Or maybe even some of the pilot helmets that you see the Rebel Alliance using in their X-Wings in Star Wars. Perhaps it's kind of a throwback to that. We also have another look at Pahatu Fantoka as a prototype. Actually, this appears to be roughly the same model as the one that we see in this image, which has been around on the internet for a few years now. It's nice to see this design up close and in a little bit more detail. Now, comparing it to the final model, we can see things are decently similar, but look at this, one of the rotor blades in this prototype version. The blades are molded to look a little bit more like a drill, and the other one, they're purely just blades. I wonder if they were playing with the idea that he only had one helicopter rotor and the other one was always a drill, instead of them changing between the two. Interesting. And I'm obsessed with this bulkier mask and this stockier body. Turning Pahatu into a powerhouse bruiser type character, it's awesome. The final design did have some of this energy, but this prototype really doubles down on it and I think it looks sick. And finally, we have an unknown prototype Toa, and I think it's wild that they made a Toa that has 3 legs and looks more like an animal. It's a very different approach. I wonder what they were thinking here. The mask design is quite interesting. It's using what appears to be this visor element in the center, but spray painted silver. And then there's kind of the top bit of a Metru foot that's being used up top here on the head. And then again, Nuparu's shield parts, they're stemming out of the sides. And actually too, the back of this mock has that same shield piece, but in black. Yeah, I love seeing all these cut up and glued together prototype masks and pieces. I don't know, there's just a certain charm to it. I wonder where all these cut up and prototype models are right now. Were they melted down? Were they destroyed? Does someone just have them in their private collection? Man, that would be a dream come true, to walk into a random like op shop in Denmark, and on one of the shelves you see one of these prototype sets just sitting there for sale. Some LEGO designer was like, I made this thing ages ago, I don't want it, I'll just give it away. Oh, I'm not trying to exaggerate, but I think I might die if that happened. Where are they now? There you go, that's a look at some prototypes from 2008, specifically focusing on the Avmatoran and the Toa. Like I said, stay tuned for one where I talk about the Shadow Matoran and the Makuta. I always enjoy these episodes, it's so fun to take a look at the behind the scenes of making these sets. I hope you enjoyed it too, and hopefully some of these designs gave you a little bit of inspiration for your next mocks as well. Thanks for watching, happy building, and bye for now.